It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. The office was spinning, rumors, Slack pings, raised voices. You walked in, asked for the numbers, saw one line that mattered, and made a single call. The bonus clawback clause would be enforced for missed milestones starting today. No speech, no anger. One clear consequence, applied once. It moved like a thermostat. One click, and the room changed temperature. Meetings shortened, excuses dried. People recalibrated without being told twice. That is fear used properly. Not a spectacle, a setting. Do not confuse this with cruelty. Panic is expensive. Panic burns trust, scorches time, and demands new fires to hide the old smoke. Pressure, when disciplined, is the opposite. Pressure is the clean line that prevents sprawl. You do not bang the table, you mark the boundary. You do not chase compliance. You make non-compliance predictable and costly. Rumor is a fog machine. Deterrence is ventilation, with a steady cadence and a visible cost. People manage themselves, and you conserve your force for the moments that actually require it. Look at any crisis that spirals. Someone shouts, someone leaks, someone clarifies, and the price of leadership doubles every hour. That is chaotic, fear, unmeasured, theatrical, contagious. It looks strong and spends like a drunk. Now contrast targeted deterrence. You define the rule in one sentence. You set the clock in advance. You apply the minimum effective dose, early. No public scolding, no victory lap. The signal travels farther because there is no noise to argue with. Your team reads the policy, sees the timeline, and corrects course. Consider 3 scenes. In sales, a rep sandbags deals to game the quarter. You do not lecture about values. You change the commission schedule and audit 2 files. Silent message. The game just got narrower. In operations, late arrivals creep from minutes to hours. You stop the friendly reminders and implement a rolling seat reassignment for any late check-in. Nobody is humiliated, everybody is corrected. In a relationship, last-minute demands arrive with emotional sirens. You stop performing calm under pressure. You move the talk to daylight with terms and limits. Boundaries become visible, and the drama loses its fuel. Why does this work? Because most people are not villains. They are economists. They run the calculation you hand them. If the cost of delay is unclear, they will delay. If the cost of disrespect is a gentle chat, they will risk another. When one precise consequence appears at the exact point of drift, behavior snaps back to the line. You did not raise your voice. You raised the price of waste. Here is the painful truth Machiavelli knew. Fear is the cheapest lever with the highest yield when you dose it cleanly. The trick is dose. Too little fear, and the system invites tests. Too much, and it breeds sabotage and silence. The middle path is visible, measured consequence that needs no press release. Think dosage like medicine, the smallest amount that produces the desired effect, delivered on a schedule people can predict and therefore respect. Build this into your habits. Write the rule before the conflict. Set the clock before the mistake. Choose the consequence before the apology arrives. If you are angry, you are already late. Delay until your heartbeat slows, then act once. Document, not dramatize. Offer a path back that protects the rule. Metrics, time, behavior. Mercy belongs after order, not before. Used this way, fear feels less like a threat and more like a boundary that protects the many from the few. You will be called cold. Smile once and keep walking. Cold is what heat calls steel. The outcome will answer for you. Calmer rooms, shorter meetings, cleaner promises. People sleep better when the lines are real. You are not hoarding punishment. You are conserving peace. Induce just enough fear to keep promises honest and boundaries real. Men, in general, judge more from appearances than from reality. You were promised that love would hold teams together, that good intentions would breed trust, that unity would dissolve conflict. Those stories are comfortable and costly. They hide price, risk, and enforcement behind warm light. Strategy begins when you strip the slogans, count the costs, and make the signal match the story. Start with the kindness discount. Leaders learn early that warmth is cheaper than budget. We care about our people costs nothing at a microphone and millions if honored on a spreadsheet. So praise becomes currency and is spent instead of cash. Salary bands freeze while speeches blossom. We're a mission, not a market, becomes the reason a top performer is asked to stay for love, not for pay. We're all in this together becomes the reason hours stretch past the plan and weekends vanish into crunch. Emotional language becomes cost management. A raise replaced by a compliment, a policy replaced by a promise, headcount replaced by a hug. If you accept the feeling in place of the figure, you look noble while underwriting someone else's margin. Be clinical. Translate warmth into terms. Headcount, scope, budget, equity, decision rights, and actual time off. Ask for artifacts that survive applause. A ticket, a signed doc, a number with an owner, and a date. You can be gracious and still require math. When the numbers appear, kindness turns from manipulation into management. When they don't, you have your answer without a fight. Now the Harmony Theatre, where family culture performs peace while breeding sabotage. In a real family, you can fight in the kitchen and still eat together. In corporate family cosplay, disagreement is recast as disloyalty. Candor becomes negativity. Questions become not being a team player. Truth goes underground. People nod in meetings and cut in corridors. Reviews smile while reference checks whisper. Public channels fill with emojis. Back channels fill with knives. Forced peace is not stability. It is pressure with polite lighting. Look at the maintenance bill. Decisions slow because no one wants to be the villain. Documents dodge clear verbs to avoid bruised feelings. Mediocre performers survive on charm because performance conversations feel harsh. High performers quit quietly because they do the math. The organization protects feelings over outcomes, so outcomes go find a home elsewhere. The payroll looks fine until it doesn't. Then a reorg lands like weather. The cheaper price would have been a tense meeting last month. The expensive price is cultural drift that takes a year to reverse. Your move is surgical. Replace vibe with venue. Put conflict on a schedule with rules. When we disagree, we do it here, for this long, with this decider. Using numbers and examples. Praise bluntly in public. Critique precisely in private with a clock. Publish decisions, owners, and review dates, where everyone can see them. Harmony becomes not a mood, but a byproduct of process that vents pressure before it poisons the room. Real unity is not a chant. It's a cadence of debate, decision, and enforcement that repeats under stress. Finally, speeches versus signals. People do not obey ideals, they obey incentives. A speech is a map. A signal is the road. If the road contradicts the map, they drive the road. Announce no jerks, then reward the rainmaker who burns out 3 teams, and you have taught the culture that cruelty pays. Announce work-life balance, then celebrate midnight heroics, and you have taught that exhaustion buys praise. Announce craft excellence, then ship shaky work to hit quarter, and you have taught that speed outranks standards. The crowd hears the words, it follows the payouts. Flip the payouts so the visible path to reward matches the story. Tie compensation to the outcomes you want and the way those outcomes are achieved. Publish a short scorecard that weights delivery and behavior, and use it. When a star trashes the process, tax the bonus and state the rule. When a manager protects weekends and still ships on Tuesday, make the promotion memo quote that line. When a team documents trade-offs, renegotiates scope, and hits the revised date, give them the stage on demo day. 1 or 2 public fair signals move a culture faster than a dozen town halls. People take notes on what costs and what pays. Adjust those levers and the organization will correct itself. Bring this down to your day. As a lead, stop paying for goodwill with your own time. Price your availability. Guard maker hours like budget. When someone asks you to, be flexible, trade scope, timeline, or resources on the spot. Do not rescue chronic offenders for the mission. The mission decays when your boundaries do. As an IC, stop believing intentions are contracts. If you receive a promise, ask for the artifact that proves it later. A calendar, block, an entry in the plan, a number in the sheet. Not to fight to remember. The same physics govern your personal life. A partner who speaks of unity while avoiding a definition is staging harmony theater at home. A friend who loves your heart but never repays is enjoying the kindness discount. The influencer who performs radical openness and then launches a product is running speeches versus signals as a business model. Be generous and keep your audit sharp. Love can stay, the leaks cannot. Machiavelli's lesson is not to ban warmth. It is to separate warmth from rule. The fox hears, "We're family," and asks for the rota. The lion hears mission and asks for the budget. The crowd wants to be soothed. The leader must be exact. If you must choose, choose signals. A single fair enforcement writes a paragraph in the culture. A single public reward for the right behavior writes a chapter. Do not despise sentiment. Place it correctly. Put it in how you deliver truth, not whether you deliver it. Put it in how you celebrate, not what you count. Put it in how you part ways, not whether you act. When speeches and signals align, trust grows without slogans. When they diverge, enemies walk through the gap you refuse to close. You cannot govern by hope. You govern by incentives that tell the same story as your mouth. Let the myths keep singing. You will measure, decide, and enforce with a steady hand. Your kindness will be priced. Your unity will be earned. And your love will be protected by the only force that holds anything together for long. Consequences that match the story. Honor people, price costs, and let the signal rule. He who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command. Fear is a tool. Mood is a leak. Approval addiction, humiliation, sensitivity, and status anxiety are not abstract flaws. They are handles an opponent can grip. They distort how you use fear. You think you are enforcing order. You are buying relief. You imagine you are strategic. You are simply fast. If fear is currency, your wounds set the exchange rate. Name them, regulate them, and your command becomes legible. Ignore them, and every decree serves your heartbeat, not your plan. Begin with a trigger inventory. B for forensic. Faster replies under pressure are the first tell. A message lands with heat, and you answer in minutes at midnight, on weekends just to prove control. You teach the other side that their tempo rules you. Over-explaining to seem fair is the second tell. One question arrives and you write a manifesto to look balanced. You are not persuading, you are publishing your pressure points. Thin timelines, shaky stakeholders, sensitive metrics, performative apologies complete the set. We take full responsibility when nothing substantial is corrected. Each tell announces the same thing your need is steering. Turn the inventory into an audit checklist. Catch the breath lifting high, drop it to the belly for 2 full cycles. Feel the urge to type long. Replace paragraphs with one narrow question. What specific change do you want? Hear the inner voice whisper, be fair. Translate fairness into process. Decisions follow written criteria. Send them. Sense the apology loading. Choose correction over confession. Fix the error if real. Decline theater if not. Keep 4 visible rules on your desk. Response windows. Scope first. Questions before reasons. No public remorse without remedy. Now, need as a handle. The need to be liked makes punishment irregular. You ease up when flattered, then overcorrect on outsiders to look balanced. The need to be admired makes punishment performative. You escalate in public to look strong, then backfill policy later. The need to be right keeps you arguing past advantage. While you polish sentences, your position decays. Each need maps to a predictable loss pattern. Approval need produces softer terms and accelerated clocks. Admiration need produces spectacle, decisions that win the night and lose the quarter. Pride need produces debates that leak strategy. Replace need with numbers. Publish standards before heat. Response windows you will keep. Penalty ladders tied to evidence. Mercy as a mechanism with written conditions and review dates. Tie rewards to delivery, not to praise. Make the sentences you will use under pressure now. That exception doesn't travel. Scope changes price. Earliest start is the 15th after deposit. When applause surges, hold the rule. When criticism stings, hold the rule. Those who profited from your volatility will call you cold. Let them adjust to the climate. Do not adjust the climate to them. Humiliation loops are the costliest distortion. A public slight lands, a manager questions you on a call, a rival posts a jab, a citizen mocks your caution. Pride surges, and you answer with spectacle crackdowns, sweeping rules, mass emails, sudden purges, late-night firings, a thread that roars. For a day, the room gets quiet. For a month, your legitimacy bleeds. Spectacle teaches people to hide information, to root around you, and to await your mood. Fear widens, quality falls, and you rule a timid, dishonest court. You look powerful on camera and weaker on paper. Separate venting from statecraft. If an insult stings, label it and wait. Delay turns adrenaline into evidence. Ask 3 questions. What breach occurred? Who must decide? What remedy protects the line with minimal blast radius? Punish to instruct, not to soothe. Aim for quiet, proportion, and clarity. One documented correction, executed once, creates predictability. Drip-fed reprisals create paranoia and plots. The question is not, how hard did I hit? The question is, what behavior will change? At what cost? And for how long? Establish a cooling protocol so fear is applied by rule, not by mood. First, delay windows. No public statements inside 24 hours of a public hit. No personnel decisions inside 48. If the matter is existential, convene the small war room still under the clock. Second opinions. Require a counterweight to sign off legal operations, or a trusted peer whose incentives are not applause. If you lead alone, use paper as your second write the strongest case against your move, and read it tomorrow. Third, written rationales. State the rule, the evidence, the proportion, and the aim before you act. Make the protocol visible so it protects you. Tell your team, we do not respond under clocks. We do not punish on camera. We do not invent rules mid-fight. Put call and response into the culture. When pressure rises, people should hear and repeat, window, witness, writing. The ritual is boring on purpose. Boredom is a moat around your power. It stops opponents from steering you with flattery, deadlines, or insults. It teaches allies how to help you hold the line. Study the enemy scripts because they are written for your wounds. Against approval seekers. They use praise, then ask compliments followed by small exceptions. Your counter is pre-committed standards, and the sentence, "that exception doesn't travel." Against admiration seekers, they bait spectacle, leaks time to prime time, questions engineered for virality. Your counter is off-camera action and one short statement tomorrow. Against status-anxious leaders, they use comparison. Another team acted faster. Your counter is sequencing. Quality requires order. Earliest start after deposit is the 15th. What does it look like tomorrow? A senior partner presses you on a call. You feel heat. You breathe low. List the deviation from contract. They huff. You log it, notate evidence, and close the room. Later, you apply the ladder. Private notice, remedy window, consequence if ignored. A journalist posts askew. You wait your window, publish one factual rationale, and move resources where the breach occurred. An employee flatters then, asks for an exception. You point to the standard and decline without apology. The day feels less dramatic. The plan survives. Fear, used cleanly, is not rage. It is boundary. It is the quiet knowledge that rules are steady, consequences are proportioned, and procedures outlive moods. You do not need to look harsh. You need to be legible. Map the triggers. Remove the handles. Refuse humiliation theater. Obey the protocol you wrote when your hands were cool. Then your face stops moving first, your standards stop wobbling, and your power stops leaking into the crowd. Window. Witness. Writing. Fear is a tool. Used poorly, it becomes a beacon that invites predators. It begins with tempo, not truth. A small provocation lands a sly remark in the meeting, a vague post that smells like your name without saying it. You answer instantly. The reply is longer than your office requires, warmer than your station allows. In that speed, you reveal need. The need to be cleared, liked, obeyed. Your opponent doesn't wrestle with facts. He seizes the frame. The question shifts from "what happened?" to "why are you so eager?" In one breath you slide from author to defendant. Fear, misused or absent, is the hand that waves you into the trap. Walk the steps like an autopsy. 0. The jab. 1. Your paragraph. 3. For context, you leak details that never belonged in daylight. 5. He replies with one cold sentence, the rhythm of someone who owns the hour. 7. You escalate to screenshots and subtext. 9. He asks a short question that widens the hole. 12. You contradict your first line to plug the leak you made. 15. The apology tour begins for tone, then content, then intention. 20. Your leverage is gone. Pace is power. The fastest voice becomes the easiest to steer. Make pace control non-negotiable. Counter with mechanics. Impose a tariff of time on every reply. Draft on paper where there is no send button. Route anything consequential through. One steady advisor who gains nothing from your noise. If they choose the hour, you choose the format. A single paragraph with nouns and dates. If they choose the format, you choose the hour. You are not paid to flail. You are paid to decide. Silence is not surrender when it buys position. Used well, fear is simply the memory of consequence enough to keep your hand off the trigger until the sight picture is clean. Now the contradiction cascade. Haste splits you into versions. At noon you claim principle. At 2 you plead feeling. At 6 you carve an exception. None is a lie. Together they look like design. Screenshots turn into coins. Each edit you intended as courtesy becomes a bargaining chip. You admitted X, therefore you owe Y. The archive becomes your prosecutor. The timeline cross-examines you. Volatility manufactures ammunition because it gifts the other side contrast, sequence, and receipts. Evidence need not be forged when you supply it under pressure. The cure is structure. Answer the charged claim, not its orbit. Trade fog for nouns, heat for dates. Avoid the memoir voice. Do the review in private. Present one clean page when ready. If you are wrong, name the act and the repair once. If you are right, let the clock carry your case. Brevity, properly armed, is armor. Remember, fear should live in the certainty of consequence, not in the spectacle of anger. People must predict your move from your rule, not from your mood. Fear mishandled also breeds exception creep. You waive a rule because you fear losing a star. You delay a boundary because you fear appearing harsh. You soften a sanction because you fear a headline. These are not isolated mercies. They are precedents with legs. People read the new price of disobedience. Low. The disciplined feel naive. The daring feel clever. The street begins to test for sport. Compassion outside structure is cruelty to the reliable. A leader who will not make one clean cut will bleed the good for months. Coalition erosion follows randomness. Allies are not a chorus. They are lenders of credibility. Steady hands avoid unstable leaders because instability taxes calendars. When outcomes are arbitrary, risk spreads like smoke and careful people open windows. They hedge with silence first, then with absence. They are not disloyal, they are rational. Reverse the leak with cadence. Promise your inner circle. I will speak once, clearly, after verification. Keep it. Send brief factual updates before anything public, so no ally is blindsided by your impulse. Predictability under pressure is the kindness that keeps coalitions intact. The crowd studies cost, not catechisms. When boundary violators pay nothing, violations multiply and become entertainment. A junior manager performs insolence for likes. A vendor drags a negotiation to the feed to squeeze a discount. A rival times small leaks, so you chase and the chase becomes the show. None of it must be true to work. It needs only your hurry. Visible, proportionate enforcement is civic hygiene. A written reprimand executed on the exact day promised deters more than any speech delivered in heat. A cancelled contract with a one-line notice educates faster than a month of public scolding. Fail early and you will overpay late. That is the mathematics of fear mismanaged. Without early minimal force, leaders lurch into late maximal force. The inevitable crackdown arrives when patience without teeth trains the room to ignore your words. Having refused a stitch, you order amputation, mass firings, blanket bans, surveillance where a conversation would have sufficed months ago. You spend more money, more loyalty, more face. The public reads the panic and remembers every waiver you granted while calling it grace. Modern cases are blunt. A founder tolerates slips because we are family. Deadlines decay. When the flagship client walks, she imposes draconian hours, daily stand-ups, approvals for every change. The best talent exits. The rest perform compliance without results. 2 precise corrections in week 2 would have spared a winter of fear. Or take a city that treated vandalism as minor. When streets feel unsafe, the mayor floods the night with sirens and armored vans. The bill arrives in lawsuits, overtime, and trust burned to ash. Early, limited force would have protected both dignity and peace. Govern fear. Do not let fear govern you. Separate theater from consequence. Design the ladder before the storm. Rule written and visible. Private warning quoting the rule and the clock. Measured consequence on schedule. Restoration path clear to all. Cold process, warm tone. No sarcasm. No public humiliation. You are teaching that mercy lives inside structure, and that structure has a spine. People can forgive a clean cut they saw coming. They will not forgive the endless drip of indecision. Return to tempo. Provocation is bait for time. Your opponent does not require your error. He requires your rush. He wants statements you must edit. Edits you must explain. Explanations you must pledge. Pledges he can price. Refuse the chain. If the matter is real, it will still be real in an hour. Use that hour to gather records, cool your blood, and tighten your language. Move once, with weight. Let your silence announce that you are deciding, not drowning. Rightly placed fear is quiet. The felt knowledge that boundaries are real and clocks are kept. You do not need to roar to be obeyed. You need to be read as inevitable. Adopt enemy mind. Imagine how your sentence will be used before you send it. Imagine how your hesitation will be priced before you delay. Reduce angles on your own name. Trade the sugar of relief for the protein of position. The crowd will forget the noise. The partners you need will remember the posture you held when the drumbeat quickened. Be predictable, cut early, and move once with weight. Love bends with the weather. Respect holds when the storm arrives. Drop the fantasy that affection alone keeps rooms in order. In work, politics, and intimacy, cooperation is built on predictability, risk, and the credible cost of breaking rules. Properly dosed fear is not hatred. It is the shadow of consequence that protects the peace you intend to keep. Once you understand that, you stop campaigning to be liked and start governing outcomes. Your calm becomes a courthouse. Your word becomes law. People may admire you later, but first, they must be able to read you. Respect before warmth. You can be liked without being obeyed. Applause is cheap when your state swings hour to hour. Respect begins when people can forecast you. If they cannot, they hedge against you, and hedging is the first distance. So you fix your rhythm. One tone on Monday and Friday, the same answer at noon and at midnight. Your yes and your no weigh the same whether you are rested or angry. Volatility dazzles for a minute and destroys for a year. Reliability is slow, thunder, quiet, steady, impossible to ignore. At work, the friendly manager who forgives everything becomes a hazard. Teams smile, then slip, because the cost of slipping is zero. Replace charming chaos with a schedule you never betray. Priorities by noon, Monday, midweek, check at 5, Friday wrap with next steps. If an upstream handoff is missed twice, scope shrinks automatically next sprint. No lecture, no heat, just cause and effect. In dating, you can be delightful and still lose authority. If you say no to late-night arguments, you keep that rule when you are baited. Predictability crowns respect because people can plan, and planning is how cooperation survives pressure. Terms over vibes. Vibes soothe until pressure rises. Terms survive pressure. Translate values into visible levers, scope, cadence, consequence, and enforce them quietly. Scope is what is and is not promised. Cadence is when information moves. Consequence is what changes when either fails. Simple, measurable, and a little boring, that is why it works. Morality speaks in ideals. Order speaks in clocks. Examples. Work. 3 deliverables by the 10th. Updates, Tuesday and Friday. If a deliverable slips, we cut scope, not sleep. Collaboration. 2 posts per week. Shared dashboard access. First of month renegotiation window. Miss twice in a month, and we pause or rebalance shares. Family. I visit first Sundays. If I am booked, I move to the next month. No guilt campaigns. Intimacy. We discuss conflict only in calm hours. Shouting ends the talk for the day. Cancellations inside 6 hours cost the next slot. Terms convert care into actions. Both sides can trust when moods turn sour. Renegotiate only with new facts. New role, new market, newborn facts. Busy, crazy week. You know how it is, weather. If you let weather rewrite the law, you teach the room to pay you with storms. Hold the line you drew when you were calm. Adjust only when the world truly moves. People call that cold until they notice how fair it feels over time. Peace follows paper, not promises, because paper survives the hour. Signals, not pleas. Pleas are speeches that rent attention for a day. Signals are patterns that buy trust for the long term. Reduce promises to almost zero and make your value observable. Set response windows and keep them every time. If you reply within 24 hours, do it. If you need 48, claim it and meet it. Establish delivery rhythms, numbers Friday morning, summaries first of the month, renegotiation windows mid-month, and keep them especially when you are tired. A rule that fails on bad days is decoration. A rule that holds on bad days is governance. Use signals to read others. After a miss, do they repair unprompted with a plan and a make-good, or do they perform a 10-minute apology and ask for grace? When you say 7 sharp, do they arrive at 7 or at 7:12 with 3 texts? When you decline with respect, do they escalate or adjust? People reveal their respect, not in compliments but in how they handle your limits when no audience is watching. Price your access using those signals, not their speeches. Your attention is currency. Their patterns are the exchange rate. Mercy after order. Mercy is strongest when the law is real. Before rules, mercy looks like weakness. After rules, mercy reads as magnanimity. Sequence matters. Boundary first, leniency second. When someone breaks the rule, the consequence lands clean scope, cut, slot, released, access paused. Only then, if it serves the larger piece, you add mercy. A one-time exception documented, a smaller penalty when they self-report, a path to earn trust back. Mercy that overwrites the law trains manipulators. Mercy that follows the law trains citizens. Picture a teammate who misses a deadline and arrives with tears. If you reward the tears with an invisible extension, you teach the room to weaponize crisis. Instead, the task rolls forward. Future scope shrinks until delivery recovers. Later, when calm returns, you offer a tight mercy. Ship a reduced version this week to rebuild cadence. In intimacy, the first raised voice ends the talk for the day. The next morning, you walk and restart. The rule remains the rule. The mercy is the human warmth that keeps the rule from becoming cruelty. Properly dosed fear simply means this: breaking the rule predictably hurts more than keeping it. Not humiliation, not rage. Just a small certain cost that arrives every time. That shadow protects the city so the markets can open, the lovers can meet on time, and the team can go home for dinner. Love is not erased. It is guarded by law. Respect is the currency that endures because it is minted in predictability and backed by consequence. Here is the reframe. It was never love doing the heavy lift. It was respect created by reliability, terms that outlived moods, and mercy delivered in sequence. Be readable. Convert values into scope, cadence, consequence. Enforce quietly. Offer mercy after order. Do this long enough, and people will choose your rooms because they can breathe inside them and still trust the walls. Respect first, terms next, mercy last. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Machiavelli. Fear, handled well, is not a scream. It is an instrument panel you read and tune. You do not terrorize, you calibrate. You do not punish to feel powerful. You set costs so small harms do not grow teeth. This is governance, not cruelty. Your aim is predictability with minimal noise. People see the line, feel the nudge, and correct before impact. You design the panel, not the panic. Begin with the calibration table. Match offense tiers to consequences with timelines and evidence standards so the dose is standard, not personal. Tier 1 private correction within 24 hours for a single low-impact lapse. Evidence: 1 dated instance. Intent: redirect fast and quiet. Tier 2 documented warning within 72 hours for repeated lapses or a single serious miss. Evidence: 2 instances or 1 verified high-impact event. Delivery: short note copied to a relevant stakeholder. Tier 3 removal from role or access within 1 business day after proof. Evidence: verified pattern, signed clause, and impact on delivery or safety. Write examples under each tier so you do not negotiate with your mood. A joke at someone's expense in stand-up? Tier 1. A missed handshake that breaks a release? Tier 2. A breach of trust or safety? Tier 3. The table keeps pressure predictable. It also slows your righteous rush. Keep the table alive across contexts. At home, dishes left out are Tier 1 with a photo log. Repeat becomes Tier 2 with a written rotation. Pests or damage trigger Tier 3, a deposit deduction or service fee. In a team, missed QA triggers a short freeze. Repeated misses trigger removal from deploys. In dating, chronic disrespect triggers reduced access, and then a clean end. The table prevents favoritism because it binds you too. Your favorite receives the same Tier 2 as a stranger. Next, build signal architecture, the quiet lights that guide behavior without theater. People adjust to structure faster than to speeches. Use response windows, audit trails, and one-line directives. Response windows show tempo, received reviewing, reply by noon tomorrow. Audit trails make the path visible, decisions logged in a single thread with dates, owners, and files. No side channels where truth can hide. One-line directives replace paragraphs. Scope changes in writing only. Late arrivals reschedule. Budget edits require receipts. Signals reduce ambiguity. Reduced ambiguity reduces friction. Reduced friction keeps fear efficient, not toxic. Then, the enforcement protocol. Early, quiet, once. Early, because small harms compound. Quiet, because you fix the line, not the ego. Once, because repetition trains people to ignore you. You schedule a 10-minute private call, explain the behavior, the impact, and the tier, and record it. Your language is fact, not fire. Dates, numbers, names, clauses. Avoid public humiliation. You do not need the crowd to feel strong. Document reasons and pair every edge with a return path. What metrics, what time, what behavior restores standing. Run the protocol through scenes. A senior designer mocks a junior in stand-up. Calibration says Tier 1. Same day, you meet. Describe the sentence used, the cost to tempo, and the expected change. Ask questions, not assign labels. Log the note and set a 2-week check. If it repeats, Tier 2, written warning, witness on the next sync, and a code of conduct refresher. No stage speech to the whole team. 1 execution, clean record. A vendor demands a last-minute price jump with vague reasons. Hold the window, send itemized changes, receipts, and the clause that permits adjustment. I'll reply by 10 a.m. Signal architecture routes the talk into a single thread. If proof arrives and aligns, you approve with a change order. If not, enforcement fires once. Pause work until documentation appears. No anger, no sarcasm. The protocol protects legitimacy. The record protects you. After action, enter the review loop. Debrief privately within a week. Measure effect on tempo, morale, and output. Did the dose change behavior? Did windows hold? Or did urgency theater break them? Were your evidence standards high enough to be respected and low enough to be practical? Adjust thresholds if data says you are too soft or too sharp. If Tier 1s accumulate without change, raise the price. If Tier 2s chill initiative, lower the ice. Policy evolves from results, not feelings. Track 3 numbers: cycle time, error rate, and trust signals. Escalations down, proactive updates up. When the graph moves, your law holds. When it stalls, refine the table, not your temper. Now, design the restoration. Window the on-purpose reopening of goodwill so fear stabilizes at a healthy baseline. Recognition is the release valve. Short, clean praise tied to milestones met. Warning closed. 2 weeks on time. Quality above baseline, well done. Reinstate access when metrics are hit and say it out loud. In relationships, notice the repair. You planned ahead this week. I appreciate that. In teams, close the loop. Deploy rights restored. Thanks for steady checks. Without this window, fear curdles into resentment. With it, fear becomes respect for lines that do not move. To keep your state from poisoning the state, run a personal mini-audit each time the panel lights. Breath, tone, word count. 2 slow rounds to drop the shake from your hands. Tone, clipped, humane. Words, short enough to replay in one breath, long enough to state rule, breach, and next step. If you cannot defend it in daylight, do not do it in the dark. The panel protects others from your mood and protects you from your shadow's hunger for righteous noise. Across weeks, the system becomes culture. People learn that deadlines are real because windows are real, that standards are fair because tiers are consistent, that consequences come with a path back, that praise is as predictable as pressure. You govern by calendar and clause, not by spike and slump. The room relaxes even as it sharpens. Fear settles at a level that keeps eyes open and hands steady, not dread, not drama, just respect for lines that do not move. When you feel the urge to lecture, check the panel, signal, do not surge. When you crave the thrill of a public cut, recite the oath, early, quiet, once. When you want to keep someone in the doghouse after they repaired, check the map, restore, or you will rot the soil. Leaders who hoard fear breed lies. Leaders who calibrate fear grow clean speed. You do not need a hard face to be taken seriously. You need consistency. The instrument panel is consistency made visible. Calibrate, signal, enforce, review, and restore. Small costs early, clean files always, one consequence once, and a door back to normal work. People may not love the edge, but they will rely on the fairness. And reliance is the neighbor of loyalty. Calibrate early, enforce once, restore on proof. Power is quiet when its borders are bright. The dividend of stability shows up in cash flow, calendars, and faces. When lines are clear, conflict becomes rare and cheap to resolve. You publish standards once: scope, timeline, quality, consequence, and you keep them without ceremony. People stop probing for loopholes because there are none. Meetings shorten, handoffs tighten, and the best people drift toward you because steady rooms let them build instead of beg for conditions. Vendors learn your service levels and stop charging emergency premiums because you do not panic buy. Recruiters send you adults, not divas, because your house runs on rules, not moods. Predictability becomes an asset on the balance sheet. Fewer rework loops, fewer urgent fees, more days that end on time. Stability also turns fear from a rumor into a fact you rarely need to use. Everyone knows what happens when the line is crossed, and that knowledge does most of the policing. First, miss, correction. Second, consequence. Third, exit with dignity. Because the script is known, drama loses oxygen. Arguments shrink to evidence. Performance gives way to production. Your team spends less time lobbying your mood and more time shipping what was promised. Customers learn not to buy exceptions with noise. Talent stays because predictability feels like respect. In this weather, promises land on their dates, and trust compounds without speeches. From survival to strategy, it begins in your nerves and ends in your schedule. You regulate breath before words, and the room unconsciously follows your cadence. You answer at the speed of intention, not at the speed of alarms. You route requests through forms that reveal cost, risk, and ownership. Most theatrics die at the form because theatre hates specifics. You align incentives so that early signals are rewarded and late surprises are expensive. People adapt. The colleague who once arrived with emergencies now arrives with timelines, because the new game pays planners, not arsonists. You stop renting your focus to other people's chaos and start investing it in sequence. Strategy is logistics. You standardize the path from idea to execution: facts, options, trade-offs, decision, owner, date. You push talk into documents and documents into signatures. Reversals require new data, not new moods. You choose where you are reachable and for what. Interruptions become petitions for time rather than commands. When a competitor launches a loud feature, you wait a week, test failure modes, and deploy one targeted update that erases their headline without waking your building at midnight. When a partner wavers, you offer a written amendment with clear give and take. The relationship survives because the rule, not the emotion, carries the weight. Your tempo becomes policy, and policy is the scaffolding of authority. Tempo also becomes culture. Response windows are visible, decisions batch on defined days. Reviews run on written evidence, not volume. People learn that speed is chosen, not contagious. Vendors stop testing for panic and start preparing for review. Colleagues stop inventing emergencies to jump the queue because emergencies no longer purchase access. A calm, efficient order forms around you. Fewer escalations, steadier margins, and a brand that whispers, "Things land here." Now, the quiet crown. Night glass, a long table, too many slides. You listen until the first exaggeration collapses under its own weight. You do not scold. You specify. One project cut, one safeguarded, one date moved and made final. You ask for the ledger, the owner, the failure mode. A manager reaches for theatre. You point to the rule, everyone. Signed, and end the debate with a sentence and a time. No raised voice, no flourish, just gravity. The room exhales because order feels like oxygen. They remember the one time you had to be hard, precise, humane, final, and memory does the rest. Your silence ends arguments because everyone knows how you act when it matters. This is the payoff. A calm, efficient order where fear is rare but real, respect is routine, and people can plan their lives because boundaries are visible and kept. Fewer crises to steal your sleep, stronger alliances that survive stress. Cleaner choices that compound into reputation and revenue. You are not worshipped, you are trusted. And trust is the cheapest fuel a system can run on. Draw bright lines, keep a steady pulse, and let quiet do the heavy lifting.